You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey all, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 134, and my name is Clark from 5 Card Guys on Instagram and 5cardguys.com. With me as usual is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards, but John couldn't join us today, and it's my bad because I had to reschedule the recording of this episode last minute, but he should be back with us next week. We do, however, have another guest coming onto the show, and he's no stranger to the pod. His name is Bryan Denison, aka Cajun Cardboard, on YouTube and Instagram. We'll link his social media handles in the show notes below so you can find him. And it's good timing that he's able to join us today because he is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to basketball cards and basketball in general. And we got a lot of questions for him with the recent NBA draft lottery and the NBA playoffs heating up, of course. But before we get into the interview with Bryan, off the top, Hyung, I wanted to hear your thoughts on the NBA draft, more specifically about Victor Wembanyama, most likely now going to the San Antonio Spurs. Mm-hmm. And also, and you could answer this separately, your thoughts on the generational talent on the hockey side of things with Connor Bedard most likely going to the Chicago Blackhawks in next month's NHL draft. So I guess one question to start off, do you think it matters for their card values where these guys go or not really?
Man, that's a good question because I think that's something that we always brought up on the podcast is, would the team matter? And particularly Sacramento Kings, San Antonio Spurs, like all these teams that kind of, get brought up. Do they get hobby love? But I think, guys like Wemby, I think they're so generational that it won't really matter, to be honest. Yeah. I think it's great for the hobby that we have these up and coming generational talent. You're talking about Wemby, you're talking about even Connor Bedard coming up. It's great for hockey. It's great for basketball. So there's that aspect to it. I do think that, I guess, from a hobby perspective, I think there's going to be a lot of hype coming into it. So that's something always to be aware of, although you're running to generational talent, how realistic are those card prices at release, and is it the right time to get in at that time, right? But it is the hobby, and if it's something that you love to collect, then I'm like, go for it, and be involved in that. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a premium for Wembanyama and both Connor Bedard prices. But overall, I'm super excited, even if it's to the San Antonio Spurs that Wemby's, going to. I think it's great that, we're seeing that type of talent enter kind of like the NBA or even, NHL at this point, the highest, level of sports, right? So it's definitely an exciting time and an exciting time for the hobby as well, because I think they're going to be very demandable and collectible, cards in the future.
Yep. Yeah. I totally agree with you. I don't think in the short term, especially in the short term, it doesn't really matter what team they go to. They're such generational talents. Like no one really cares. McDavid plays for the Oilers.
That's a perfect example. Oilers is a perfect example. Nobody knows even where Edmonton on a map is, right? They would only know Edmonton Oilers because of, McDavid.
McDavid.
Right.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
But I mean, like people obviously know where Chicago is more than Edmonton, but I think, their longer term value, I think it maybe has less to do with where they actually play, but how successful their respective teams are.
Right.
Like if San Antonio can become the Spurs of the days of Duncan and Robinson, and Wemby's a core part of that team.
For sure.
His prices are going to
And I think
nice
it's a good marriage there too, because you have a struggling, San Antonio team the last 4 years. They haven't even sniffed a winning season or, a playoff, let alone. So it's something that obviously there's big shoes to fill with, Wembanyama coming in. It's very tough to compare it to, the Tim Duncans and David Robinsons of the world, because this guy is, pretty young individual coming in with a pretty subpar team, I would say. But there's some excitement around it because, I think the next 2 years in 2024 and 2025. San Antonio's sitting pretty good with draft picks as well. So it's definitely, I think, a rebuilding time, especially with the new excitement of Wemby coming in. I personally think it's, Coach Pop's, like, it's his time. He's still the president of, San Antonio Spurs. And with, Wemby coming in and, all these new draft picks, it's a rebuilding, cycle. I think his time is done as kind of like a coach, and it's kind of time to hand off that torch to, a younger coach that could potentially, be more fitting for kind of like the younger generation. It's a different crowd. And, Coach Popovich, he's been around, and he's won 5 titles, and he's proven that he's one of the most successful coaches to ever have existed. So it's something that, it's tough, but I personally think that, in order for this to continue, and, San Antonio is a winning franchise. They've been a very, very successful franchise over the past, 20 years or so, 20 plus years. So I think it's just a matter of, restructuring kind of like the team, especially with, having the first pick overall and winning that lottery status. I think, it could be definitely interesting to see, and, all the ties with, Tony Parker with France and, everything. Yeah. It just makes sense at this point. But I know it's a tough fit. There's probably teams that may be a better fit for Wemby. I know we talked about it a while back, and I was actually saying, Detroit might not be a bad fit, with Cade Cunningham there. But, you'll see kind of, I guess, in the next couple years when, the additions are, put in place, and see how, Wemby does. But for me, as a hobby perspective, I hope that he comes out, pretty hot, because I think that's what the hobby is expecting. And, but I mean, he looks like a $135 soaking wet. That's my concern.
He looks a little fragile. It makes me a little nervous for sure. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We actually asked this very same question to Bryan, and you might be surprised at what he thinks. So that's coming up, and I think that's a good segue to our interview that we had with Bryan Denison, aka Cajun Cardboard. All right, like we mentioned at the top of the show, we have with us another special guest joining us today. His name is Bryan Denison, aka Cajun Cardboard, and this is actually his second time on the pod. So if you missed his first interview with us, go check out episode 86, where we got to learn more about Bryan, including how he was able to complete the iconic 1986 Fleer basketball set. And I also remember his hilarious story about when he got back into the hobby and he was looking for a Giannis Antetokounmpo rookie card in a non-existing basketball card set.
It's a fact.
So, you got to listen. We'll link that episode in the show notes below. But without further ado, Bryan, welcome back to the show.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you all for having me. I told you the last time we did this, I'm at your service, man. Anytime you want. And so you hit me up and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. True to his word. So we really appreciate that. Just quickly, I also want to mention that Bryan is very prolific with creating hobby content for his YouTube channel at Cajun Cardboard. And it's where I get a lot of my basketball card information personally. So I'm glad you're here, Bryan, because there's been a lot going on in the NBA. And a lot of it, I think, can potentially impact the card values of some of these key players. So I thought today, the three of us could just go over some of these NBA-related topics and issues and news and see if it impacts the hobby at all. All right? Absolutely.
All right. So first, as we're recording this, it's one day after the NBA draft lottery. And we just learned that the San Antonio Spurs got the first pick overall in this year's draft, which means, of course, a 7'5" basketball phenom named Victor Wembanyama will most likely play for the San Antonio Spurs. Bryan, I saw your Instagram post, so I think I know how you're going to answer this one, but what are your initial thoughts on Wemby playing for the Spurs?
Yes, I made an Instagram post. It's true. I did not expect the vitriol and the backlash that I got. Apparently, there's some seriously sympathetic Spurs people out there that got offended because I said that is the absolute last best destination of all of the teams in the lottery. That is the last place that I would want Wembanyama to go. And people are like, he's great. The Spurs are going to be great. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I didn't say anything about that. I just don't want him there because I don't like the Spurs. I hated Bruce Bowen, about, 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. He was a dirty cheater. He was the Dylan Brooks of that era. He drove me crazy. I hated the Spurs. I always wanted the Lakers to beat them. I just didn't like them. And so I'm I don't hate very often. I'm a pretty positive person, but I was like, that's boring. Vomit emoji. Number one, their roster is garbage right now. They don't have a single player that's worth a damn. And so Wembanyama going there, I feel like he's got further to go to get to relevancy, right? I think if you'd have plugged him in a couple of these other places, if Portland had somehow lucked out, and they had a realistic chance. Obviously, if he goes to the Raptors or if he goes to the Magic or someplace like that, boom, immediately playoff team, unquestionably. But the Blazers had a legit chance to get him with like a 10.5%, and they almost snuck in immediately relevant. I even think people are like all over Detroit like they're trash. Man, people forget Cade Cunningham's a good player. Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren's a good young center. You put Wembanyama on there, and now you got 14 feet of post, rim protection. Right. I think Detroit would have been a great location, but the Spurs, they got a 6'5" power forward as their best player who's gotten worse 3 years in a row. They ain't going to cut it. I don't think they're making the playoffs. There is one thing I'll say. They have tons of cap room. So they can actually go out there and they can take back a guy and trade that's making $35 million that other teams don't want. I'm thinking if Washington want to get it off of Bradley Beal or, God forbid a Westbrook or something like that, they can take on, an extra 35 million in a trade. So they could be relevant if they plug in the right piece,
Okay. All right. So I didn't see the comments after. I just saw the initial post. So I didn't see that that feedback from that one post, but that's pretty funny. So it's more, if I get this right, it's more that they're just not going to be competitive, and we're just kind of wasting a year of Wemby's talent. Is that?
Look, if he's the prospect, he is clearly the prospect we think he is. If he transitions to the player that most people think he can be, they could still sniff the playoffs with a terrible roster if they add one piece with all that cap space. Look, I'm just saying, like Trey Jones, Malachi Branham, Wembanyama, Keldon Johnson, and Zach Collins is not going to contend for anything ever anytime soon. Like by the time Wembanyama wins a title in San Antonio, none of those guys are going to be on his team. None of them. Right. So I just don't think there's any pieces in place to do that. That's why I reacted the way I did. And I just don't like the Spurs. It had no bearing whatsoever on the fact that I think Wembanyama is a can't miss barring injury. And the reason I say that is because no matter what, I've seen enough, no matter what, he is going to be freakishly elite defensively, really, really special, as in he might lead the league in blocks his rookie year. Like he's that good defensively. Wow. Guarding probably the 3s, 4s, and 5s. He's just going to be, everybody's playing that drop coverage now, guys. So when you run a pick and roll, you got Brook Lopez standing waiting. You see Anthony Davis standing waiting and kind of playing that drop coverage, daring people to take mid-range shots, and then they contest. Nobody is going to be able to do it like this kid, man. He's going to be special on that end. Well, even if he's like 17-7 on offense, he's all-star type level pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, can't wait to see him play. So in terms of his card values, it really won't matter much, right? In terms of it's going to be sky high.
Yeah.
Right from the get.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. All right. I want to lead with that because I knew you would have a strong opinion on Wemby. And the other thing, because I didn't know if that was the issue or if it's like we see a guy like Tim Duncan and David Robinson. They did pretty well on the Spurs with under Coach Pop. So I was wondering if there would be that impact from the coach himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the thing with Tim Duncan, you got to realize that was all a ploy, right? They sat David Robinson on the bench so they could get the number 1 pick. And now you take one of the 10 greatest centers of all time and you pair him with the number 1 power forward of all time. And then, oh, by the way, you just happen to draft 2 foreign dudes who are also Hall of Famers. Well, now, that's a whole different deal. Like if you want to tell me, hey, next year we're going to add 2 Hall of Famers next to Wemby, well, there you go. Then you got a dynasty again. But
fair.
The dynasty's not there right now. Let's put it that way.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
So the interesting comparison is going to be like the most recent super prospect is probably Doncic or Zion, right? I mean, those guys were clear cut, can't miss, and barring injury, of course, Zion's been injured, but they were in an up market, right? A really up market. Wemby is down here in a down market, but he is such a transcendent prospect. Yeah. Where do you think his price point's going to be compared to 2 years ago when we saw Zion and Doncic? Well, I guess it's been 3 or 4 years ago since we've seen Zion and Doncic cards come out. Do you think his silver prisms, and of course they're going to be printed more, there's going to be a higher print run. Do you think his prices are going to be bonkers like that, or just bonkers for today's values? You think they're going to like supersede the crazy insanity that we saw with Zion and Doncic back when the hobby was really booming? That's a great question. I don't know.
It's a good question. Hyung, what do you think?
I personally think there's going to be enormous amounts of hype, obviously. But you're right. Like, I think he's going to have to, perform at the end of the day. There's going to be a lot of things that, are going to dictate that card value. And we know, the hype is probably 99% of it. And then it ends up correcting itself. So I'm not on the, bandwagon yet. There's a lot of things that have to overcome. And we've seen it with, Luka's pricing. Doesn't matter. You're going to have to perform. And even if you even perform, you're going to have to win. Right. So that's a big, I think, component of all of this. So I think, it's, the chase is going to be real though. I'll tell you that. And I'm probably going to have a little bit of FOMO myself. So, I'll probably contribute to the nonsense, but yeah.
We're going to play the lottery with the lottery. Yeah, we're going to try to put the Wembanyama stuff out of wax. The difference between the Doncic situation and the Wembanyama situation is now the cards that matter, they're released by Panini after the player's already played. So there's no more secrets. I remember when Doncic came out, you could buy Prism in like the first week of December. So you'd only seen a month of Doncic, right?
Right.
Point. We're going to, who knows when the hell we're going to get Wembanyama Prism, it might be, by the playoffs or something like that. I don't know. I don't pay attention anymore. I can tell you this. I'm going to own as many Wembanyama cards as I do Zion cards and John Morant cards, which is none. The price point is going to be way too high. I don't mind paying a lot for cards. Y'all know that. I'm big
right.
But I don't buy big risk. That's just too much risk. Even though I think he's going to be great. I really do.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with you guys. And there's going to be the initial hype. The only difference I think there will be from that era, the 2021, the hobby hype period, I think it's going to peak and it's going to come down a lot faster than we saw with Zion and we saw with Luka Doncic cards. We're seeing all of those cards gradually decrease. If you're listening to a pod, I had a Luka Doncic Silver Prism that I just sold 60% of its value from when I got it. But it was a gradual decrease. I think there's going to be that initial hype with Victor Wembanyama, everyone chasing, everyone FOMOing, and then it might even take just a month or two before it comes crashing down, unless he does something ridiculous. So that's what I expect. But I'll probably own 0 Wembanyama cards as well.
I think people are smarter now, guys. I mean,
true.
It's the same people. We're just, I shouldn't say smarter. We're more educated, right?
Right.
And I say we because I'm part of the hobby. Y'all are part of the hobby. But I think generally speaking, the average hobby participant is more educated. And, while the pop for Wembanyama Silver Prism, let's say, might be 180, 40 days after release, we know it's going to get to about, 6,000 at some point, right? So that should scare people. We've seen it. We've seen this story before. People shouldn't jump on those Silver Prisms early in the game, in my opinion. I'm with you. Buying guys like 2-3 years now after they've come out. Like, you look at guys like Cade Cunningham, you look at some guys, who have been in the league. You see they're good, but you're not paying that rookie premium where everybody's buying into the unknown because they're scared they may not get the car, especially with the rare stuff. Like people are buying, paying huge numbers on unproven rookies for the super rare stuff, because if you do wait 2 years and you're wrong and you shouldn't have waited, then you're not going to get the card. You can't touch the card anymore. It's in somebody's PC inside.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Just going back to your point, I think we are as a hobby smarter, but I think as a hobby we also have a lot less money because we lost a lot of it in the last couple of years. So
Agreed.
Yeah. Next, we talked about this before on our pod, but we were saying that centers and traditional big men in the NBA don't get a lot of hobby love, despite guys like Embiid winning the MVP this year, Jokic, and even Giannis all awarded the MVP, right? So what do you think about the collectability of big men in the hobby as an investment?
As well, you remember, there's collecting and investing. So I collect Shaquille O'Neal.
Right.
I collect Shaquille O'Neal because he played here at LSU. I got to play against him. I got to watch him play in multiple games. He's a great personality. He's endured. He's got an off-the-court presence. Everything about Shaq reeks of the 90s, which is the era that I love to collect. And so I collect him because I love collecting Shaq. I didn't start collecting Shaq to make buku money, right? If I just wanted to put my money in what I thought was the best investment, I'd buy LeBron and Jordan. In fact, I'd never buy any other cards because those, to me, are the lowest risk, most sure return on your investment, in my opinion. Certain cards, not all of them, but certain cards.
Yep.
But I collect Shaq for fun. Anybody who collects Jokic, for fun, or Embiid for fun, I love that. I don't group Giannis in there with those guys because of the way he plays. I think Giannis is more, I'm not comparing the players, but Giannis is more Tatum. Giannis is more wing than Giannis is, 7-foot post guy back to the basket. Not
sure.
Back to the basket guy. So I don't know. There's no question. For every one Embiid collector, guys, how many Steph Curry collectors are there? 100, 500 to 1? Seriously, it's crazy like that, right? So there's truth behind it. And whether it's right or whether it's, substantiated or not, I don't know. But from an investment standpoint, I steer clear of big men from an investment standpoint because investing in prospects is already risky enough. Why add one more element of uncertainty in there by going with a true big, unless your price point's just crazy?
Sure.
Your price point could be crazy low, and then if it's a penny stock who you think may turn into an all-star, a James Wiseman or something like that. I mean, I don't know what his cards are worth, but I can't imagine they're very expensive.
No.
If you think he's the next great one, then go grab him. But
it's kind of like the baseball logic. Like in the baseball side, it's like pitchers and catchers. They never get any love. Doesn't matter what they do. They could be an MVP, win a batting title. They still don't get the love. It's the people like the point guard or the quarterbacks in football, right? So it's something that I never understood, but I think there's a lot of buying opportunities on those particular good buys, I would say. Guys that would, map out in a Hall of Fame career that nobody loves right now, but down the road you see, enormous value because nobody wants them today, right? At today's prices, right? So
True.
Are we too late on Jokic? I don't know. I haven't looked at his prices because that's not where I put my money, but there's a very short list of guys that have 2 MVPs and a ring, and he's looking really, really good as far as the first ring. I'm not saying it's a done deal, but it looks good. I mean, he looks good. He's playing at the peak of his career. He is a little different than most bigs. He's more Larry Bird than he is Bill Walton.
Yeah, that's a good comp.
Kind of plays like Bird. I don't mean to like pitch and hole, chubby white guys together, but like he's just he plays like Bird, right? He doesn't use very many dribbles. He picks people apart. He's got a genius level IQ.
Yeah.
I think he's the greatest passing big man that's ever lived already.
Love it.
Like I've seen enough.
High praise. Yeah.
I've seen enough.
Kind of a side question. We know Embiid won the MVP, but do you think Embiid should have won the MVP, or are you a Jokic guy?
Jokic. Yeah, I don't think it was very close. If Jokic hadn't won the last 2, I don't think it would have been a close vote. Jokic won the last 2, and I think that muddied the picture. Same way we saw Jokic take that one from Giannis. Look, Jokic deserved this MVP. I mean, who's the best player in the world? I'm a Giannis collector. I think Jokic is the best player in the world right now.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So buy Jokic.
You will never trap me into telling people what to buy. You guys know me too well. I will tell you what I buy, but I will never tell you what to buy.
I told you I was a student today, so I'm just
we're writing down notes.
Buy Major League Baseball catchers. That's what I say. Go buy Joe Mauer. That's what
exactly. Yeah, that's a good one.
All right.
Are catcher prices lower than position field players?
Oh yeah,
big time. Average for sure.
That doesn't make sense to
It's
me.
crazy.
I get the pitchers, right, because they only pitch, every 5 games, starting pitchers and relievers. Nobody wants relievers, but like catchers play every day.
Yeah.
Why are catchers' cards
almost every day? Yeah.
Yeah.
Catchers,
are they load managing now for catchers? I don't.
Yeah, they are. I would say it's like a 70-30 split around.
What?
Yeah, 80-20, 70-30. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. It didn't used to be like that, huh? Like I remember Piazza playing every game. Gary Carter in the 80s played every game. All those guys,
you can't compare that era. Yeah, they're a bunch of third balls. Yeah. It's all load management.
62 is the new 82 in basketball.
Exactly.
Right. Kawhi, damn you, Kawhi.
Yeah. And look, I stopped playing fantasy football when they started doing this running back by committee. I was like, well, I don't even know. I'm drafting running backs. Right. You may play half the snaps. I was like, the hell with this, man. I'm not doing this. I'm not guessing at this. So I think it's permeated through all the big sports. Although hockey, I think those dudes are about as tough as it gets. I think you can't take those guys off the ice. They won't let you, you know?
Yeah, the stud players are, for sure. As Canadians, we know that for sure.
You know that, yeah.
All right, number 3. I want to talk about Jason Tatum, actually. He just had a masterful 51-point game against Philly in Game 7, no less. But if you look at recent NBA player rankings, the aggregate data shows he's squarely in the number 6 to 10 range. Yeah. All right, so my question is, do you think he can take the leap to becoming a consensus top 5 NBA player in the near future? And if so, do you think he's worth collecting sooner than later?
2 questions. No, I do not think he can be a top 5 player in the NBA. And the reason for that is I can name 5 players that are better. And now we've got another one coming in who's not going to take long to catch up. And we've got other guys that are progressing. I think Jason Tatum is squarely in that 6 to 10. And I think he's safely in the 6 to 10. I think he's crazy collectible. He's in a big market. He's on a fantastic team with tons of talent around him. Unlike our Spurs roster, the Boston roster is deep and it's troublesome. They could win. They've been in a couple finals already. They could do it this year for sure. I think them and the Nuggets are going to square off unless Jimmy Butler does another Superman act.
Sure.
I think he's super collectible, and especially since his rookie year, 2017, is before the huge boom. I consider 2018 the big jump where Panini said, let's chase the dollar, right? And that's the huge jump in print run. At least that's my perception. I don't know if the numbers back that up. I think they do when you look at the silver PSA 10 numbers, and then every year you go back, obviously it gets better. 16 less, 15 less, 14 less, 13 less, 12 is really where, you see 30 Anthony Davis PSA 10 silvers or whatever. I like Tatum as a collector. There was significantly fewer color parallels in Prism. Select meant more back then. Optic meant more back then, just less print run, fewer parallels. I don't think Tatum I think he's at or near his peak, and you see he's wildly inconsistent, right?
Yeah.
Dating all the way back to last finals where Jaylen Brown was clear-cut the alpha and the best player for the Celtics in that finals. It wasn't Jason Tatum. And he may have been injured. He may not have been. We don't really know. There was some talk about that. But I think the reason he's wildly inconsistent is he cannot create clean looks because he's really not an elite athlete. He's not the athlete that Jaylen Brown is. And so he shoots more contested shots than a Jokic. He doesn't get as many dunks as Giannis, so his percentages are going to be different. And for that reason, I think it's going to be really hard to break into that top 5 in the world. Like, I don't think he's the player that Doncic is. I don't think he's a player that Jokic or Giannis are for sure. And you got a bunch of other guys that are kind of knocking on the door, trying to be in that conversation.
Sure. Okay. That's fair. I what I hear is because I have a green prism of
I love that.
Yeah, a color match, love it. But I'm beginning to realize there's a ceiling to Tatum, in terms of his hobby value. Because if he doesn't crack the top 5, then he's going to stay. It's not going to decrease in value. Certainly, he has talent, but you almost have to get to the top 5 for the hobby to really give him the love and then boost that value. So that's what I'm kind of realizing with Tatum.
What cards are worth more, Tatum or Jokic?
I want to say
Tatum. If you're hesitating, that should worry. If you're hesitating, that should worry you, right? We just agreed Jokic is the best player in the world, and yet his cards are cheaper than Tatum.
True.
Maybe I should go buy a light blue Jokic or something.
There you go.
So I don't have any dog in this hunt.
Yeah.
But
good point. Good point.
Again, but then your big man bias comes into play, and Tatum's been to a few finals, and But then again, Jokic has won a couple MVPs. I don't know. That's an interesting comparison. It's different positions, but comparing prices like that is what makes the hobby so fun, man. I love going on indexes and trying to figure it out. I mean, Doncic cards are worth a hell of a lot more than Jokic cards, generally speaking. Is that right? I don't know if that's right or wrong. I don't know. Generally,
the higher end, when you look at the higher end cards, for sure. And actually, that was my next question, and the next player I wanted to focus on is Luka Doncic. If you look at the same kind of aggregate data, he's like number 4 or 5. He's always in the top 5, as we expect him to be. But the thing with Doncic, I think, is he already gets a ton of hobby love. So my question, do you think he's somewhat overrated in the hobby? And let me be clear, I think Doncic is an absolute stud, but for someone, who failed to get his team into the playoffs this season, and, I wonder if some of his high-end cards, the current prices are warranted.
These are my thoughts on Doncic, and you tell me where I'm wrong. I think he's a top 3 to 4 player in the world. Certainly, I think he's a top 5 player in the world. That's the basketball side. His cards are priced as though he's the best player in the world. We know that. But what we forget is, if you'd asked me this question, Clark, 2 years ago, I would have said, I think Doncic is one of the 5 best players in the world, and I also think his cards are wildly overpriced. But here's the deal. Over the last 2 years, the basketball card index has gone down 46%. I know we don't like to talk about the bad, but it's down 46%.
We talked about it last week, actually. Yeah.
Doncic cards are down 60%. So Doncic has performed worse than the average basketball card.
Yeah.
So he's coming back to where he belongs. The question is, do you think he's gotten to that floor? It's actually gotten worse. Like over the last 6 months, I've got it pulled up over here. Basketball cards over the last 6 months are down 36%. Doncic is down over 50% in 180 days.
Wow.
Across the board. We're talking Donruss base PSA 9s. We're talking NTRPA.
Everything,
We're talking everything in between. So I think people are asking the question you're asking. Why do I have so much money in this guy? He's done nothing. But the other point I wanted to make is he's set up to fail, man. Look at that roster. There's no way in hell you can't put enough talent at the 3, 4, and 5 for a roster with Doncic and Kyrie Irving to win a title. That combination cannot guard anyone in the NBA. We're seeing teams that, we saw Steph Curry struggle with that. You're about to see the Lakers cause problems with Jamal Murray being an ineffective defender. And Jamal Murray is a much better defender than Kyrie Irving and Doncic, in my opinion. Those two guys are orange pylons. It is always going to be a problem trying to win a title with those two guys in the backcourt.
Right.
When you go compare them to the Boston Celtics, Marcus Smart, who I don't like, but good, better than average defender. Jason Tatum, good defender. Jaylen Brown, crazy good defender. Robert Williams, ridiculous defender. Al Horford, hands-on people, great defender. That's 5 great defenders. If you go look at the Dallas Mavericks, they just traded their All-NBA defender. They traded him to get a guy that doesn't play any defense and who may or may not show up, who they may or may not give a max contract to. I think he's set up to fail. I don't see how the Mavericks get out of jail right now. I really don't, man. It sucks. Yeah. We're missing his prime, and he's special.
Man, Hyung, I was thinking like we should look for Doncic cards because I feel like it's
go by Doncic.
We always talked about when the bottom of the Doncic market is, right, and that's when we want to buy. But we witness it, and it keeps on going down. So you just kind of wait on it.
Wait on it. I'm on the sidelines with a lot of these young guys, but there's no question about who Doncic is or where he is going to fit historically. The only question is, can he get those rings that people in the hobby overemphasize? I think it's an overemphasis on rings, right? That's just me. Yeah. I don't know. A lot of shit has to go right, guys, for you to get a ring, man. A lot of things have to go right.
Absolutely.
Just hypothetical. If Doncic never wins a ring, do you think his prices take a haircut at some point? Like even his high end ones, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to look so far in the future. At some point, I don't mean to sound like Debbie Downer, but at some point, people are going to look at how many freaking cards Doncic has.
That's true.
I mean, and they're going to be like, this is insane. There's just too many options to choose from and not enough people trying to snatch them. It is just too many options. Like, Hyung, you were talking about buying into Doncic. Like, what would you even buy? Like, the question is, what would you buy?
Yeah,
you know,
and that it would have to be it would have to be something that is desired. Like when you talk about baseball, it's going to be your first Bowman, but then again, those card prices will always be overpriced, right?
I mean, the gold prism, what the hell is that?
It's ridiculous.
I mean, I haven't looked, but it's a Tesla for sure. You know, I mean, like right. NCRPAs.
Yeah.
Forget about
list
it.
Of here's my impression of the hobby, and we were talking about the hobby's getting smarter, the hobby's getting more educated. Is the list of desirable cards, guys, is shrinking to a very small number.
Right.
We're seeing that, right? It used to be, we're not going to buy base. We're just going to buy silver and better. And now nobody wants silver prism.
Yeah,
Silver's the new base.
Yeah.
People are like,
true.
I'm not going to buy a silver prism. There's too many of them. There's 2,000, 3,000, whatever.
Yeah.
And so gradually we're going to get to where there's only 2 or 3 cards that anybody wants of a given player. I mean, we're funneling down to that type of deal. That's kind of why I like to stay in the 90s, man. I don't know. I know which cards in the 90s people want because we've got 3 decades of evidence. Yeah. I don't know what's going to be left after the attrition of the hobby, and once we figure out what this hobby is all about, I don't know what's going to be left for Doncic and Zion and Ja and all those guys as far as the cards to have. I mean, people today think it's kabooms. People may not give a damn about kabooms. In the 90s, nobody gave a damn about PMGs. And now PMGs are literally, Malibu mansion prices. I mean, it's just don't know where it's going, and there's so much uncertainty. It worries me.
Yeah, well, Bryan, you helped me because as soon as I sold my Luka Doncic Silver Prism, I have some money on hand, and I want to reinvest into Luka because of what you said. You notice like some higher end cards taking a 60% cut, but to your point, I'm like, do I really want a Panini Opulence rookie auto? Do I really want Chronicle Origins rookie auto?
We don't know. We don't know. Yeah, I mean,
there's so many choices to choose from in terms of even on card rookie autographs. It's a little crazy out there. So I guess I'll hold off. But I'm getting the itch to get back into the Doncic market.
Now look, I mean, there's short term. I love making short term stuff too, right? Like everybody, flippers. I'm not a flipper, but you know what I mean. I like the investing aspect of cards. I talk about it on my channel all the time. That is really fun for me. So I'm not telling you there is a price where a Luka Doncic Silver PSA 10 becomes a buy. I just don't think we're there. Like, I don't know what it is, but I'm not there right now. But there is a price. Well, here, look, I got
$500.
Will that be the price for you?
$500.
$1,500 was the last one. There's 2,211 of them.
Yeah, no, it has to go under 1K for sure.
I think under 1K. Yeah,
totally agree. Yeah. Yes.
Wait. Yeah. All right, we're on the same page with that.
Yes.
Okay, I got one more question, and then we got a kind of rapid fire type questions at the end for you. But number 5, let's put aside the MJ versus LeBron GOAT debate for a second and just focus on King James right now. Would you say it's a good time to get into LeBron cards? And I ask because his rookie card prices, we've been talking about basketball card prices in general. Everything's kind of trending downward. The index shows that's been a 45% cut over the past year as an entire basketball card market. But it seems like he's also getting a small bump in some areas because the Lakers are still in the playoffs. The Lakers might win, and then we're talking about another ring for LeBron. So what do you think right now? Would you buy or would you hold off?
Oh my God. The LeBron market right now is the most confusing thing because there's so many things cutting in both directions.
Right.
Okay? The first question you have to ask, if your question is LeBron a buy right now, you got to ask some cards yes, some cards no. Okay, I will shoot you all straight, and you can watch my mail days on my video. I am buying LeBron, but I am selling his tops. I sold all of his Topps Chrome base at a loss. I took a loss on a lot of those. Some of them I pulled from packs in 2023 because I'm old as hell, but most of them I took a loss. And it was just time to cut bait and be done with it, like you with your Doncic Silver Prism. The hell with it. It's been long enough. I'm just give me my losses. Let me go reinvest it. So I'm buying early Panini Prism colored LeBron PSA 10s. That's what I'm buying. I think that's a good I think those are good value. I think the way that old people like me collect 90s inserts and parallels, I think that when guys that are in their late 20s, even mid 30s, get to be my age, late 40s, I think the buys for LeBron are not going to be base chromes. I don't think they're going to want to buy the base chromes.
Yeah.
I think they're going to want to buy unique, 2013 Prism silvers, PSA 10. The pop count on those is going to be sometimes less than 100.
Much lower,
And more of a collectible mindset,
Just weird. Like the deal now on Instagram, do y'all remember 3 years ago, the deal on Instagram? And I was guilty of it too, but I would post, people would post 75 De'Aaron Fox base Prism rookie cards or 20 Doncic silver Prism PSA 10s. Now it's, I'm going to post this card nobody's seen. I'm going to post a card that people are going to be like, what the hell is that? Yeah. That's what people are doing now, and that's what catches my eye. And I don't know if it's the same for y'all, but I like to see there's a guy, Exquisite Collector. He keeps posting these LeBron cards, and I'm like, I don't even know what product that is. Like, I'm this beautiful card. It's a PSA 10 free. I've never even seen the card, and I do this a lot. I mean, I pay attention to LeBron. Yeah. And so those are the types of cards that catch my eye. And so I'm trying to buy not quite that rare and that unique, but very low pop, non-rookie LeBrons. I think Topps Chrome Gold LeBrons are good buys. I think Topps Chrome Black Refractor LeBrons. I think the finest colored refractor non-rookie LeBrons. I like to dabble in the non-rookie stuff. Nice. And the reason I do is because I'm a Jordan collector, and the best Jordan cards are not rookie cards. The best Jordan cards are definitely not. They're not even cards in the 80s. They're cards 8 years into Jordan's career. And so,
true.
A lot of people have rookie card tunnel vision, and I'm kind of the opposite. I used to be that way, but I've kind of transitioned to be a completely different collector now than I was maybe 7-8 years ago.
Interesting. Yeah. I think I still have the rookie card tunnel vision. I'm going to be the first to admit that. But what has changed in terms of where we are in the market, I don't mind the lower grade ones for the lower serial numbers. So let's say LeBron Topps Chrome Black. I'm okay with the PSA 6 or 7 because that's more in my budget. And I know it's lower numbered instead of the PSA 10 Topps Chrome. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yep. So I'd rather go for the for the lower numbered stuff and rarity, I guess.
The need for rookies, that stems from baseball card collecting. Because I know it's different. Like baseball card collectors are like rookies or bust. Because I grew up a baseball card collector. Like nobody wanted a 1979 Eddie Murray or a 1981 Ricky Henderson. We wanted the damn rookie card. Like nothing else mattered. So that definitely comes from baseball for sure.
But I do think there's still plays, like you said. I like what you said. Like there's collectability in non-rookie cards too, because there's cards that I just personally love, and it's not necessarily a rookie card. It's maybe their second year or third year card that is a rare parallel that is a ridiculous deal compared to overpaying on Shohei's a perfect example. Ohtani, like you can't get a rookie auto. But there's other opportunities in other years that, are pretty affordable, but they're super rare. I think over a long period of time, there's going to be enormous amounts of value, just like what we would value a rare Topps Chrome, 2013 LeBron James, like a black refractor, in a high grade or whatever it is, right? So I like that aspect. It brings it back to more collecting and a vision of long-term collecting. It's not, I'm going to get rid of this card. I'm buying this card because I actually really like this card.
Yeah, right.
That's it. Yeah. And the cool thing about buying the non-rookie cards is a caveat that's built in with that, a little bonus. We call it lanyap in Louisiana. That's how you say bonus in Louisiana. Lanyap. You don't spell it that way. That's what it's called. So some lanyap to non-rookie card collecting is your price point's lower, which means you get more mail days. And so that's like sharing your cards with people. So I might be able to post 8 non-rookie cards for the price of 1 rookie card if I just bought the rookie card PSA 10. So I like that aspect of it too. I'm really having fun. Like I've lowered my standards on Jordan. I used to be a grade snob. All PSA 10s or BGS 9.5 for my Jordan insert PC. And I've dropped down to PSA 8s because I can buy so many more. It's amazing how much more bang for your buck you can get with the lower grade. And honest to God, every time I post a 10 and an 8 together, the comments are always the same. I can't tell the difference. I'm like, neither could the grader probably. So
that's the ironic part.
At some point, maybe we put this PSA 10, take it off the pedestal and just at least close that margin a little bit. Who knows? Maybe I'm crazy, but I think one day it might close.
Yeah, Brian's on our side when it comes to that. grading discrepancy.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's all bullshit, guys. I think it's ambiguous. I really do. Like if you tell me it's a 9 versus a 10,
right?
It's 50-50 split. Maybe a 10 versus 7, sure, okay, fine, I get it. There was some kind of defect, but like 10s and 9s, nah, I'm not buying that, man.
Yeah,
I'm with you. All right, I'm glad we had this convo. It went pretty quickly, but we spent a good amount of time just going over some of the bigger NBA related news lately. So anyway, I want to ask you, you were talking about mail days, and these are kind of my rapid fire kind of questions, but take as long as you need to answer them. Sure. Number 1, favorite recent pickup for your PC.
I'm gonna cheat, and I'm gonna say I'm collecting the Star Jordan set, right? I say set, it's not set. Jordan had Star cards in 84, 85, and 86. Right. There's 25 of them total. I've decided to collect the whole set. So a lot of my focus and spending lately, I'm a set collector by heart, has been trying to knock another one off the list and put that 25 card set together. I'm saving the big boy for last, the Star 101 rookie card. That's going to be nice. Right. So, I might save that for the National. Maybe we'll make some good content about me finding a nice 825. Awesome. But that's what I've been doing. So that's kind of been my focus. And I pick up little Jordan PSA 8s along the way. But those Star cards, I've just gotten into it, started to dive in a little bit. I joined the Star basketball Facebook group. And so I'm learning and educating myself a lot on those cards. It's been fun, man. I just love set collecting. Awesome. I make my nerdy spreadsheet, and as I get one, I put it in, I get all excited. So that's where a lot of my money's been going lately. So that's what's made me excited.
That's fun. Nice. Yeah, great. All right, I'm sure you saw the Steph Curry, LeBron James, Luka Doncic triple logo man for the flawless set that's coming out. Mm-hmm. And this is a question for you too, Hyung. Would you rather have that card or the triple logo man LeBron? And put aside the value, like what it's going to cost for your PC. You're never going to sell it. Which one would you rather have?
You go, Bryan.
It's LeBron, Curry, and Doncic, right?
Yes.
Triple LeBron, not even close. Not even. It's not even in the conversation. Not by far, not even close to me. That's what I would.
Okay.
So when was the LeBron triple logo man?
That was last year, right?
It was last year. So and this year's the Steph James Doncic logo man.
But Hyung, I think that the LeBron, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't play in those waters, but I think it was a Lakers jersey, a Heat jersey.
Right. All three.
Cavs.
So
all three. That to me, man, that's next level. That's super unique.
Yeah, that's super cool. And both obviously are one of ones, right? So I'm going to go, I want to go LeBron just because there's more history on that. Like, I don't know how this Steph James and Luka does, right? Because this is coming up, or it's what's the deal with that?
It's the 75th anniversary logo man too. So
that is cool.
It's nice.
Like,
it looks
nice.
Looks
sick.
Yeah, there's a lot of eye appeal.
It does look better. It's cool.
Right. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go with that just because if the LeBron logo man was a little older and there's a little more history on it, they're apples to apples with me. And at the end of the day, we've been wrong about basketball, so just flip a coin at this point.
Okay. I'll be the tiebreaker.
Clark, let me tell you something.
Sure.
There's 5 triple logo mans in this flawless product.
Yes, I saw that.
One of them is, are you sitting down for this? Zach LaVine, Jalen Green, and Vince Carter. Can you imagine one of these breakers slow rolling that card, and you see the 3 logo mans? You're like, it's the one. It's like, oh, shit. You feel like you just lost $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
Again, Grail card. I'm sorry. No, I don't mean to disparage Zach LaVine, but like, how pissed would you be knowing? Oh my God, I had a 1 in 5
It'll be a huge disappointment for sure.
Terrible.
There's gonna be one person that experiences that though.
Yeah.
There's gonna be there's gonna be 4 people probably.
4 people. Yeah.
No offense, but Scotty Barnes, Cade Cunningham, and Evan Mobley
ain't gonna cut it.
Doncic and LeBron either.
Yeah, that's true. If I'm going to be the tiebreaker, I'm going to go with Steph, James, and Doncic too, just for the eye appeal. But if it was an investment, definitely LeBron. That's just out of my mind. It blows my mind away that a card like that exists. All right. Third question. If you could turn back time to the 2019 NBA draft, would you still have Zion Williamson number 1 and Ja Morant number 2, knowing everything that's happened so far?
Well, I mean, I know exactly where I was because I put it in writing every chance I got. I personally would have taken Ja Morant 1, Zion 2.
Okay.
Not because I thought everybody was like, Zion's an injury risk. And as it turns out, yes, he apparently is an injury risk.
Right.
I wasn't having any of that because he just had the 1 foot injury or whatever. I was taking Ja because I think point guards are crucial. I mean, I think point guards are crucial. I worried about Zion's longevity, not because he's heavy or because he's injury prone, but because once his athleticism wanes, I don't feel like he's going to age well. And I've said the same thing about one of my favorite active players, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't think he's going to age well because he doesn't shoot the ball proficiently. His game is not predicated on skill. He is a good passer, but his game is not predicated so much on skill. It's about being absolutely physically superior to your opponent. And that only lasts so long, but skill and shooting, as we've seen from Steph, endures, right? Steph's me. Steph is 6'3", 195. He's exactly me. And he's still one of the best players in the league.
Right.
And I haven't seen him dunk a basketball in years.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
True.
so I would have gone Ja number 1 then, and I would go Ja. Well, I might not go Ja number 1 now, but I might have to look further at that 2019 class because Ja's going to be in some trouble. How many games do you think he's going to get?
Well, it's going to be significant. It's going to be significant.
I want you to give me a number. I know my number. I've got it in my head.
40.
40. 40 is the number.
Yeah.
They're going to crush him. It's going to be 40.
Wow.
That's what I think too. But that's why I asked the question. I don't want to get into the off the court issue, but like there's been a lot of people selling off Ja Morant. His prices have definitely crashed because people are worried. So yeah, I was wondering if that played a factor too. And I can't remember who number 3, 4, 5 was in that draft. So that's
I'm thinking,
I have to look back.
It is Jordan Poole.
Poole was in that draft, 2019?
Yeah.
He's got his own issues.
Hero.
He's got his own. Something's going on with him, man. Something's wrong with him.
The bigger question is 2019 draft class a bust? Can we go that far, or is that
heading in that direction? Let's just leave it at that. Somebody needs to come in and save it. That's a fact, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Man, that's tough.
We'll leave it there. All right. 2 more. Is the Warriors dynasty over? And would you buy or sell Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, or Jordan Poole? We're just talking about him.
Hyung, you want to go or you want me to take it?
No, this is all you. I'm just the watcher.
The dynasty, if you want to call it a dynasty, it's over. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. They're not. I don't think they're running it back with Draymond. There is a, and I don't know if it was the punch or whatever everybody says. Right. There is a rift, and I am very observant with body language. There is a rift between Kuminga, Moody, Poole, and then the old guard. I think the older fellas, not necessarily Steph because he's still a killer, but Klay Thompson and Draymond, I think those 2 guys think they're a little better than they are. Right. And I think the younger guys think they're a little better than they are. I think Kuminga is horrific. I think he's terrible. I don't think he has any future in the NBA at all. And I've always said that. I don't think the guy can dribble, shoot, or make decisions. Moody's going to be an okay player. Poole is very elite offensively. I don't know what's going on in his brain. He doesn't even look like the same player he was a year ago. He's regressed. His shooting's regressed, and he's just not as good a player. He's not willing to play defense. That dynasty's over, man. They're going to break that. They got to do something. They're going to keep Steph. The other guys are gone. I think Klay may come back for 1 more. I think Draymond, they're going to ship him.
Okay. So Steph really is the only guy out of that group worth collecting at this point.
You would have to take a lot of risk on. I think Jordan Poole's offensive talent level is there, but I am very worried about what I saw this season from Jordan Poole. I mean, what kind of a soft ass do you have to be? You get punched in the face, and so your season's a wash. I just don't get just nut up, man.
Tough to watch.
I mean, you're an NBA pro. If you were confident before you got punched in the face, you should be confident after you got punched in the face. I mean, Draymond's just that dude. So I'm disappointed in the way that Jordan Poole played this year. So I would not be a buyer of Jordan Poole. That's me personally. I don't know what his card prices are at, but that's not my guy.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely not the only one for sure.
Yeah. Are they down? I haven't looked. Are his prices?
Oh, yeah.
They must be down.
Yeah,
for sure.
Massively? Okay. Yeah. That's about right. I mean, had a bad year and flamed out. Whatever.
Yep. All right, last question. If you listen to the pod with all our guests, we like to make it a little bit more Canadian centric because we are from Canada. So the Canadian question for you this time is, what do you think of Canadian basketball player and soon to be NBA champion Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets?
I love Jamal Murray. I love comparing NBA point guards to each other. And I have a guest on my channel all the time, and we do an NBA past and present pod. And I was asking him on one that came out yesterday, Fox or Murray. Fox got all the accolades this year and took that huge step, and everybody noticed. And Murray kind of slowly worked his way there, getting healthy. And everybody's like, it's not the same Jamal Murray. It's not the same Jamal Murray. I'm telling you right now, it is the same Jamal Murray. And don't call him Bubble Murray. That's just who he is when he's healthy. Like, the kid's really freaking good. I love Jamal Murray, man. I love his game, and I like his price point, man. Nice. I do. He's a great example of the time to buy. Like, I'm done with buying the rookie cards during their rookie year. Those days are over for me based on the price point. I like reverting and looking back and saying, who was a rookie 3 or 4 years ago? And Murray's now. Man, Murray's like 7 years now. He's 2016, right?
2016,
yeah. I mean, his career's, not to sound morbid, but his career's probably a little pushing halfway over. That's crazy.
Right. Well, he had that injury year, so it's like
last year, yeah.
So he's played less than you expect.
He was also super young as a rookie, if I recall. I know he's one and done at Kentucky, but I think he was like crazy young.
19 years old. Yeah.
19,
he was like 19 years old.
Yeah. And so he's he's probably 26 or something like that. That's still pretty young. He's probably got a good 10 left,
Yeah.
I like Murray, man. I like him as a buy. Would you buy Murray at his prices, or would you buy Jokic at his prices?
Oh, Murray, for sure. Yeah. Jokic is like, it's up there. For a big man, too, it's up there. Yeah.
Yeah, the Silver Prism's getting there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I like that final answer. So we'll definitely invite you again to another.
That qualified you.
You didn't ask me about Fred VanVleet and what I think about Fred VanVleet. If you had, I might never get invited back.
Well, we like you. That's why we didn't ask you about Fred VanVleet. So
it's a setup.
But Bryan, I appreciate your time as always, and I think you have to be our Cards to the Moon podcast basketball expert. So we'll definitely have you back on for sure.
I mean, look, we're a perfect dichotomy. I am scatterbrained. I talk too much. You guys are thoughtful, organized. I'm all over the place, so it just works. It just works. It's like a husband and a wife. Other. They're totally opposite. Somehow their marriages work. Our marriage is going to work. I think it will.
Great comparison. Love it. All right, thanks, Bryan.
All right, y'all.
Thanks a lot, Bryan.
All right, just like we said before, it was great to have Bryan back on the show with us. He's always, as we said on the top of the show, a wealth of basketball knowledge. And I'm glad we're good hobby friends with him because he's a great resource. And if you haven't checked out his YouTube channel at Cajun Cardboard, he has a lot of videos and he goes into good detail and analysis. So check him out, and you're going to learn something about basketball and basketball cards. So thanks again, Cajun Cardboard, for coming onto the show. All right, let's end off this show the way we usually do, and that's with our segment we call Pick One. If you're new to the program, this is when Hyung and I will put up a couple of cards or sets or players, and we kind of debate which one we would rather invest in. All right, so I can go first, and this is a variation of Pick One, but it is from a listener question. And I thought it was a good one when I read it. So Kenny Tomek, thanks for suggesting this Pick One.
Kenny.
Yep, Kenny's the man.
I'll tell you something about Kenny really quick. Kenny
sure.
was actually one of my first guys that I've interacted from a card perspective, getting back into the hobby way back.
Oh, no way.
Pre-COVID. Yeah, so just throwing it out there. Shout out to Kenny. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right. He had a good one. So I'm going to just read what he wrote. BGS Min Gems. Okay, he's talking about BGS Min Gems. Which category would you hate to have the 9 on?
Oh.
Okay. So Min Gems, I guess if you aren't familiar with the Min Gem rating, it's a 9.5, BGS 9.5. But one of them, is it just one of them?
It's or two one of them? No, two of them would be considered a 9.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so there's 4 categories: centering, edges, corners, and surface. And if one of them has a 9, that's the min gem.
Right. Yeah.
And the rest is 9.5. So his question is, which one would you hate to have the 9 on out of the 4?
Hate to have.
Yes.
Oh, to me, it has to be the centering. Absolutely.
Okay, why?
Eye appeal, 100%. You wouldn't be able to tell. And that's I've seen it. I've seen min gems with 9 centerings, and eye appeal wise, they're like that would have been a PSA 9. But you look at other cards where the corners or edges or surface. Surface is the best 9 in my opinion, because you can't even see the minor scratches that have the 9. The centering is perfect if it's 9.5 or close to it at least, right? So a 9 centering, to me, with the naked eye, you see a huge difference. So the eye appeal is the biggest thing for me. So definitely centering for me.
Okay. I think it's going to be a sweep. Centering for me, because if I wanted to crack it and, resubmit it, you can't do anything about the centering, right?
Unless that's you send it to PSA, because I've seen some pretty questionable centering PSAs, but yeah,
I thought they were tough on centering. Okay.
No, anyway. they're I would say they're most lenient on centering. PSA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Then I changed my mind. Corners.
Corners.
The corners, you can't fix. I'm not saying alter. I don't want to get in trouble by the hobby fam.
Yeah, you might get roasted there.
But no, you have a bad corner, you got a bad corner. There's nothing you can do about it, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying you might not necessarily see the bad corner in the slab, right? So you wouldn't even know if it's an 8 corner. I've received an 8 corner before. I don't know why, but sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It's just the way it goes. But like an 8 corner versus a 9.5, I guarantee you, to the naked eye, you won't be able to tell.
Oh, okay.
Just throwing it out there, but you make your decision.
You know what? It's a flip of a coin then. Okay, I'm going to go with centering. You can't really control centering. Okay, so it's a centering soup, and our friend Kenny, he also chooses centering.
Oh, did he?
The pick one he wouldn't want.
We're on the same page, Kenny. Yeah, we went to the same school in pre-COVID,
Okay, thanks Kenny for that. And if you have a pick one, you a listener or subscriber to our podcast have a pick one, just DM us on Cards to the Moon on Instagram, and we'll definitely look at that. All right, Hyung, do you have one?
Yeah, I'm gonna switch it up a bit, since we've talked about kind of like the GOATs, or not the GOATs. I couldn't even call them the GOATs. The up and coming prospects, the big time kind of like generational talent between Connor Bedard and Victor Wembanyama. If you're to choose to invest in, who would you choose in? One player, not a card, not a particular card. I'm just saying, if there's a player you had to invest in, and you can't invest in the other player, would you invest in Wemby, or would you invest in Connor Bedard? And we really didn't talk about Connor Bedard, but I think he's unbelievable. What he's done at the U18 kind of like World Championships, for Canada, and the hype surrounding him. This guy is the next Gretzky, they call him, same breath as, Connor McDavid, Wayne Gretzky, kind of like that type of talent. So who would you invest in? Would you invest in the 7'5", big time, Frenchman, or would you invest in the Canadian?
This is a good one. I like this one. But you would think it's harder for me, but, because we discussed it a lot in this episode with Bryan, and just got some time to think about it. If I'm investing in one player and it's for the mid to long term, it has to be Connor Bedard. It has to be. And you kind of mentioned it in passing, like Wemby is rail thin, and I'm afraid, unless he bulks up, which he can because he's a super young guy, right? But he's also tall. So when you jump, you can land on a foot, you land on some, a lot can happen in terms of getting injured, which is what I'm afraid of. Like, the hype is real now. Like, who would I like to have the first year of their career? Wemby, for sure. Right?
Yeah.
It would be amazing to have a Wemby card in his first year, because, you could get some good profit off of that. But if Bedard is anything like, the Gretzky comparison, or even close to McDavid, and, I'm all in on McDavid. I just can't afford McDavid rookie cards right now. and he's the real deal. And if Bedard is like, and he's in the same breath as those guys,
right?
And what little I've seen of him in the minors, he's going to be very impressive, and people are going to, think the same. And I think, in the long term too, I think hockey is going to grow as a sport as well. I still believe in that. So I'm going to go for Bedard because of those reasons. Yeah.
No, it makes sense. Yeah. I'm kind of along the same lines of thinking where, you have, I think, a lot more proof in Connor Bedard, or a player like Connor Bedard. It's a lot safer, in my opinion. I think mid to long term, you see, if you had the opportunity to invest in, Connor McDavid in, 2016, would you have bought that Young Guns for $500 when everybody said, holy, he hasn't done anything yet? But I feel like, that's kind of like Connor Bedard, what we're talking about. And a lot of people say, well, Lafreniere was kind of like that next up and coming, but he was obviously, a slow starter in terms of his career. There's a lot more development that has to take place. So there's always that question on the back of your mind, whether or not, there's a lot more development needed. But I don't think Connor Bedard is that player that needs that development. I think he's going to be a immediate impact type of guy that's going to, score a lot of goals, and be able to skate like crazy. Like I forgot who they're comparing, but like it's literally having the best of both worlds, like skating like McDavid and shooting like, an Austin Matthews, right? So it's like you've really haven't seen that type of generational talent. And if they're saying and claiming that he is that generational talent, and so same with Wemby on the flip side, but at all the points you're saying, there's a lot of, uncertainty, especially with the San Antonio Spurs and, what's going to develop in the next couple of years, and the immediate impact that Wemby's going to make in the NBA. That's going to be a big question mark, right? So, I personally think Wemby's going to hold his own, to be honest. But like we've seen in Luka's shadows with a bad, supporting cast, it might not work out to, that person's favor. And I kind of want to wait on Wemby. I rather, invest in Connor Bedard if I had to pick one, because I know he's going to make an immediate impact to wherever he's going, and he's going to be a fan favorite. He's going to be a type of player that everybody's kind of after, because it's similar to the story of, Connor McDavid. Yeah.
All right. It's a Bedard sweep. And you know what? I really think the Chicago Blackhawks landing spot's sweet for Bedard.
Right.
Like original six team. And
makes sense, especially after Kane. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will say this, though. I think it's wishful thinking to think we can get Bedard prices at a discount. I think this day and age with social media, the hype's going to be unreal for Bedard as well.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
Compared to when David came in 2016. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a different level of awareness from the hobby family and, people collecting cards now. So they're both going to be extremely expensive in their first year. So anyway, that was a good 1v1. That'll conclude our episode today. As always, thanks for listening to our weekly podcast. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday and every other Friday. And one last shout out to Bryan Denison, aka Cajun Cardboard, for coming onto the pod this week as well. We'll see you next week. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.